Come forward, name for the record, please.
Thank you all for having us. My name is Cody Lee. I'm the manager of the Gas Facilities Replacement Program with Avista Utilities. And this is...
I'm Michelle Chambers. I am a customer and project coordinator for our gas facilities replacement program that we are replacing. We're in 3 different areas this year in Post Falls to replace existing vintage pipe.
And so this is a nationwide concern that's been addressed by Avista for over 10 years as part of this program called the Gas Facilities Replacement Program. It is a particular vintage of natural gas main that's called Aldelay. It was manufactured by DuPont in the 70s and 80s, and the first generation of resin that they used for this natural gas line was susceptible to, the industry termed it slow crack growth. Across Avista's system, across 3 states, we had nearly 750 miles of it initially, and as of our 10-year anniversary, we have half the remaining pipe to remediate in our system. Now, the wonderful news is that in the Post Falls area, there is just under 2 miles. So a very, very small slice of that, but being that we wanted to work construction this summer, we wanted to come let you know about it. I apologize that the presentation was not available, but we can forward any maps, any concerns after the fact. And I don't know if you want to give them a kind of a high-level overview of the project.
Yeah, so...
Could I ask you to step over to the microphone just a little bit so they can pick it up? Thank you.
Okay. So we initially, so we are going to start on Idaho Street. So we have an existing gas line that runs down Idaho Street that I would like to eliminate just because we know that it is a very, very, very busy street. So we are reinforcing it off of Lincoln. And that allows us to actually eliminate Idaho and just allow us to stay off Idaho. We will go down just a little bit from pole line, maybe 120 feet down, just because we do have 2 existing homes in there that we can't relocate. There is in that particular area, there's probably about 2,000 feet of existing pipe that needs to be replaced. It goes down Lincoln and up through Grants Court. So that is where we will start off. Once we are finished with that area, then we're going to go up across the river, up off of Riverview, and we're not going to touch Riverview except with our tie-in point. It'll be Riverview Terrace, a small section on Riverview Terrace, because the majority of it is still pipe. And we will be on Rio Vista. There's about 3 services there on that court that need to be tied into our new service that we're going to be putting in. And then the majority of it is on the other side of Riverview off of Penny. That is going to be the big one that we're going to be replaced there. So that's probably, that's quite amount of footage there, maybe about 25 or 2,400 square feet, or excuse me, 2,500 feet of pipe that needs to be replaced. Once that is finished, now before I go any further, each one of these projects, we can only predict how long it's going to take. Sometimes it can take 2 to 3 weeks. However, we never know what we're going to run into as soon as we open up that ground. We always want to drill. However, being across the river, probably not going to happen because it's all solid rock up there. On the prairie, more than likely not going to happen. Just because we have that riverbed. So we're probably gonna trench it all. And how the project works is we start in one particular area. As we're trenching along, we're putting in our new pipe. Once all of our new pipe's in, then we'll go ahead and do the tie-over point and we'll abandon that old service. We'll gas up our new service and then we'll do our tie-overs, meaning that we'll take each residential home and tie it over. There will not be any interruption to anybody's home. We do kind of, since we're working through a neighborhood, we are going to be in front of people's homes. However, Our contractor crews who we use is called NPL. They're extremely amazing, and they always put steel plates out. We have really good communication with our residential customers, and we want to do the best we can to accommodate them. So once that's done, as we're going along, we actually put a cold patch asphalt in, and then once the whole entire phase is complete, then we will actually asphalt, we'll re-asphalt. And then at that point, we're completely done and over with.
And Michelle, the focus on putting,
Thanks.
the cold mix or cold patch on there is a lot of contractors will use gravel. Gravel, just by tire tread, wheel pass gets blown out. We've just realized that we would rather spend that extra cost knowing that all other subcontractors, you know, are very busy throughout the summer. So utilizing everybody's time during the process. One of the pieces too is traffic control. Our program replaces an incredible amount of natural gas main per year. We want to ensure that we have site-specific traffic control plans and that everything goes through the city and gets vetted with a site-specific plan. And then also it would be, obviously we are cutting into roads. That's a concern. Patches, whatever it may be. I'd just like to speak to Avista's long term commitment and partnership with the city of Post Falls, and then to our regional pavement cut policy that has been basically built with all of the municipalities and Avista in mind, so that we are going to that center lane, we're going to the center of a wheel path, that we have metrics on our overcuts so that we leave a product that we can all be proud of.
Well, there was concern expressed 3-4 years ago with the number of cuts in the roads, and some citizens felt that they were not repaired properly, or brought back properly. So I appreciate your emphasis on that, and make sure that the roads are as good or better when you start in them.
Yeah, no, we've been, Todd Kisby and Coeur d'Alene, our regional manager, has been amazing, and so we definitely want to make sure that everything is done properly, and we all know that ground settles. So if something happens years down the road, you know, we do want to make sure that that is replaced how it should be. Same thing goes with concrete. So if for whatever reason that we need to rip up anybody's concrete, like their curbing on the side or concrete panels, we will replace that. It won't be, we want to do it to seam to seam, so we want it to blend in as if it looked when we walked away.
Can you speak to Budinger compaction?
Yep,
testing?
so, Budinger, we use them for our compaction testing after we're all done. So we have a 95% or greater. That is what we strive for. So if it's not good, then obviously we need to redo some stuff. But yeah, traffic control, we will do everything in our power not to cut off any roads, any road closures. It will probably be one lane closure for a certain amount of time. If for whatever reason we do need to do a full road closure, it's gonna be for a short period of time. And the only reason why I say that is because we do have a project. My third project is gonna be the Royal Highlands. That is about almost 8,000 feet of pipe that needs to be replaced throughout the whole entire development there on the Royal Highlands side. We are starting right after, because I know the Highway District has a huge project going in there, so we're starting right at, I would say right after Sonic, and then going up around. It'll be a one-lane closure until we can get up to the very tippy top, because it's extremely tight there. We're gonna do our best not to completely close it off. However, there may be a day where we have to. However, right there off of, I think that's Sterling, going up into the Highlands, that is very important to emergency. And you know, we have the spa up there, the restaurant, and we have the golf course. We want to make sure that people can get in and out of our homes rather than going all the way around the prairie in there. So that would be the only time frame where we would need a complete road closure for a day,
Okay.
just to get around that corner. But other than that, time frames on each of these projects, probably the one on Idaho Street, that is probably, I'm gonna say a minimum 3.5 weeks. That's just my assumption here. We never know what we're gonna run into until we open up the ground. As soon as we open up the ground, then surprises come at us. Same thing with across the river. That's probably gonna be a solid month, just because it is very solid ground up there. And unfortunately, we will have to hammer quite a bit for that. The Highlands, the Royal Highlands, because we have so much pipe that we need to replace, that's probably gonna be a month and a half. Our hope is once we get to the top of Mullen and up into the Royal Highlands, that everything is drillable. So, because it's all farmland, so our hope is that we can drill it all. And if that is the case, we'll have absolutely greater amount, less of asphalt cuts. So that will help a lot. I actually have been getting a couple phone calls from residents from the Royal Highlands asking, how about the road and all of that. And I have had conversations with the highway district concerning about the roads being torn up. Unfortunately, the cold patch, it's not very pretty, but it's just temporarily until we can get that asphalt company in there just to get our final product in
Yeah.
there.
Good.
Yeah.
Any questions? I appreciate the heads up and knowing that there's going to be some disruption, but hopefully a minimal
Yeah.
amount. And we appreciate you keeping the roads in mind and bringing them back and hopefully eliminating the problems we had a few years ago. So
Yeah.
thanks again for the update. We look forward to having it done.
Perfect. And
Great.
just for timeline of when it's gonna start happening, probably within the next week and a half. We're gonna
Good.
start down here in Idaho Street. And then any complaints, you're more than welcome to forward them off to Cody or probably me, because I'm the project coordinator. So I'm more than happy to help out any way we can.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you.
Are there any amendments to the agenda?
There are none tonight, sir.
We have any declarations of conflict, ex parte contacts, or site visits? Seeing none. Would you please present the consent calendar?
Sure. Item A is minutes from the June 15th, 2023 council meeting. Item B is the payables from June 12th to June 26th, 2023. And item C is the May cash and investment.
That has to be the shortest consent calendar
Yeah.
we've seen in quite some time. Any
I would-
questions?
I would move to approve it.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Shove,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is public hearings, and I should have announced earlier, we do have 3 public hearings. Anyone wishing to testify in the public hearing, there are forms on the podium in the back. Please fill them out and turn them into Shannon so we can get your name into the record and let you speak. If you are presenting, please keep your eye. We do have a clock down here, and you will be allowed 4 minutes, 4 minutes to comment. So just keep your eye on the clock. We'll let you finish up your statements, but hopefully don't run on past that so we don't have to stop you. With that being said, the first public hearing tonight is a comprehensive plan amendment, additional clarifying language relating to focus area description. And with that, I'll open the public hearing.
Yes, good evening, Mayor Jacobson, Council President Thorson, and members of City Council. If I sound a little off, I was in a gym for 4 days cheering on my daughter's team for volleyball and maybe got a little out of control a little bit at times.
One of those parents.
Yep, I'm one of those.
How'd
So,
you do?
They won the bronze division for their tournament, so
Good.
they did good. So yes, the comp plan amendment, file number CPA 23-1, is, as you introduced, we are looking for some clarifying language in the comprehensive plan pertaining to focus areas. The applicant is the planning division. So what you'll see here, and I'll go up to the underlined text here, this is the proposed additional language that's in the referenced page 114 of the comprehensive plan. Basically, what it's directing is this map in the focus area. So I'm gonna be bouncing back and forth, I apologize. So as you've seen in many presentations, when you get outside of what was determined an unknown area for unknown timed, a transitional a land use designation. And in that, it points to this focus area for guidance in the comp plan. It's Appendix A in the comprehensive plan. So we have all these sub areas for a growth analysis and assessment for different types of land use actions. As you see here on the east side and then along the north, there's this fuzzy clouded line that doesn't necessarily line up very easy with the transitional area. And so on certain applications, what do you do if you are on the edges of those, and how do you assess those? Well, it was implied with the fuzziness that you would just carry that out to a certain point to our area city impact. But the language in our comp plan wasn't clear on that. So what this does is it does say that the outer boundaries on that figure 1.04, which is the focus area, that would go to the periphery and it would extend to the city's area of impact boundary. And that includes the shared tier. And so how the ACI works is you have an exclusive tier, which is closer to the proximity limits of the city of Post Falls. And then you have this area between Rathdrum and Hayden and Post Falls called a shared tier. And more or less, it's, you know, at that point, it could go to any city with some sort of logical explanation at some point in time in the future. Does this make any sense of what the request is? So this is the agencies that we notified on this clarifying language of that. We heard from DEQ. They said that there was no environmental related comments for that. Highway District, they had no comment, as well as the Yellowstone Pipeline had no comment. And I would have any questions you have with me on what we're proposing.
Any questions of John?
Pretty straightforward.
And you'd be the staff report and the applicant, correct?
Yep.
Okay, great. Anyone wishing to testify?
We have none.
I'm not going to let you rebut, right?
I don't want to.
I'll close the public hearing. So Phil, on this one, since it's not an annexation or zoning change, we can just go through normal deliberation?
Just a deliberation. It's a legislative item. Based on your decision, we'll bring back a resolution.
Okay.
I'd say it's pretty straightforward, and clarification is always a good thing.
I agree.
Is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
To approve.
It's a motion, the clarification is good.
Motion to
Clarification is a
approve.
good-
correct?
Clarify the clarification.
So, Carrie, that was a motion to approve it, correct?
Correct.
And bring back a resolution?
Yep, and bring back a
Second.
resolution.
We have a second. Further discussion? Roll call, please.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Shove.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Next public hearing is the Housing Company Zone Change File Number ZC-23-1, and I will open the public hearing.
Yes, so the Housing Company Zone Change, file number ZC-23-1. The applicant is Nate Wheeler of the Housing Company, and the owner is the Society of St. Vincent de Paul in the city of Coeur d'Alene, Inc. They're asking City Council to approve a rezone of what's currently a mix of medium-density R2 and community commercial services, the CCS and R2 zones, for the Smart Code SC5 zoning district with the intent to construct a mixed-use multifamily community on their 1.16 acres. The Planning and Zoning Commission did forward a recommendation for this request at their April 11th public hearing, determining that it did meet the review criteria for the zone change. The location is, as you see here, it's on the southwest corner of Catherine and Celtice Way, or you could look at it as the southeast of, looks like Compton and Celtice, just north of 7th Avenue. The current land use on that, they do have a multifamily unit currently on that R2 piece, and they do have some vacant commercial buildings that's on this site. This is over the Ratton Prairie Aquifer. The city does provide water and sewer for this site. Looking at surrounding zoning of this area, here's the hatched location there. You see along Celtice Way, the red, that's that community commercial services, that CCS zone. To the southwest and just south, those are R3 zone properties. The one to the south is a single family home on an R3 zone you do have a multifamily building just to the southwest. To the southeast of there, you do have some vacant land that does intend to develop in the future with some smart code SC5 product at that location. And to the east of Catherine, you do have the car lot and some mixed commercial services along Spokane Street to the east. Looking at the review criteria, we're still on the 6 review criteria for tonight. We actually do have an application that may come forward that will actually go to the new criteria someday in the future, but yeah, we still have these legacy projects. So the first criteria is it in accordance with the future land use map? In the future land use map, it does have this as the business commercial. Looking at what it states within that business commercial, it does look to provide a wide variety of general service, retail, and professional office. The category also promotes a mixture of moderate and high-density housing types within walking distance of the city center area. Looking at the implementing zoning districts, you can see there the SC5, I got that bolded, and also I have the underlined CCS, so the current CCS zone is also one of the implementing zones. One thing you don't see there is that medium density R2 zoning as an implementing zone for the business commercial. It does point to the focus area as possible ways to look at potential proposals. This is in the Celtice Celtice Central focus area. I have highlighted there. It's tough to read, so not that that's much easier, but I can at least pick that out. Encourage higher density residential uses in the area, boosting support for the retail and commercial uses. Support development patterns that improve pedestrian connectivity to commercial core, and seek opportunities to coordinate investment and planning energies between the Celtice Central and the city center. So potentially a mixed-use building, creating additional rooftops near commercial services may meet those policy points for the Celtice Central focus area. Looking at the next criteria, amendments to the zoning map should be in accordance with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. The first goal, grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing community prosperity and fiscal health. Goal 7, plan for and establish types of quantities of land uses in Post Falls, supporting community needs and the city's long-term sustainability. Part of mixed uses and how a mixed use downtown work and the synergy between them is having a balance of housing units within close proximity to where they may be working. I do know the applicant intends to provide some attainable workforce housing that may or may not be in proximity to some of those commercial establishments. I'll let them discuss how their model works for getting that attainable housing. Goal 14, involve the community in Post Falls in all local government planning and decision making. Now going to policy points that may be germane to their request. Support land use patterns that maintain or enhance community level service. Foster long-term fiscal health of the community, maintain and enhance residents' quality of life, and promote compatible, well-designed development. I think it's here that I locate the bus stop. It's in a fairly close proximity, the highlighted yellow area, and this is that bus route, the B route, and so there's a couple paths for residents of there that they could get to the transit, and I believe, you know, for what they're proposing, transit's actually complements their tenants, and you can see that there's a location on the northwest corner, or an individual could go to Spokane Street and go to a safe crossing point to those bus routes to the north. Policy 2, apply or revise zoning designations with careful considerations of factors including future land use mapping, compatibility with surrounding land uses, infrastructure and service plans, existing and future traffic patterns. We kind of already discussed the first two there. Infrastructure and service plans and future traffic patterns in the staff report. You've seen some analysis by engineering division. There's no proposal that would cause concern from their division. And Bill Mevin, the city engineer, is present tonight for any engineering-related questions. Policy 8 encourages compatible infill development and redevelopment of vacant and underutilized properties within city limits. This would be considered an infill development and compatible with adjacent properties. Consider the location of multifamily development in areas that have access to arterial and collector streets, which Celtics Way is one of those. Help buffer higher and low intensity development patterns. This wouldn't be a situation that would be buffering much of an impact, but it does but compatible existing uses. Or part of projects involving mixed use and master plan, and this is a mixed use project that they're proposing for that policy 20. Policy 86 looks at the local business community work to enhance sustained diversity of the local economic base by, I would just like to point out really the one that's germane is coordinating provisions of workforce housing. So there's the project location there you see hatched. The third criteria, zoning is assigned following considerations of such items as street classifications, traffic patterns, existing development, future land use, community plans, and geographic or natural features. As mentioned, Celtics Way is adjacent and it is a principal arterial. This is just a general philosophy with road classifications. You know, up here you get higher mobility, you do get fewer points of conflict, versus as you get more access, more points of conflict on your local streets, minor collectors. So that's why you see a lot of times along your busier roads, you see your commercial, industrial, and your higher density type stuff along those higher classified roadways. Once again, this is the fourth criteria, kind of goes back into the other one. It's along Celtics Way. Fifth criteria looks at limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density zoning. That's not being requested, and this is in a location that typically you would see your higher intense uses. And then the last one deals with industrial zoning, and they're not asking that, so that's not applicable. Here's the agencies that were notified. Here's the comments that were received. Highway District had no comment. Pipeline said it had no impact to their infrastructure. Kootenai County Fire and Rescue, they had their response that they generally would deal with something like this at the time of site plan review or at time of development. School District, they remain neutral, and DEQ, they had no environmental impact comments pertaining to the request. Questions for me?
Any questions of John at this point?
Would like to point out one more thing before I leave. I do know that the proposal is for along Celtice Way. The current establishment has egresses off of Celtice Way. So their proposal is to get their egresses off of 7th in the rear. So that would improve some points of conflict on Celtice Way with redevelopment.
Okay. Thanks, John. Shannon, people wishing, or actually, I'm sorry, the
Applicant.
proponent. Sorry. Jumping ahead here. Proponent wishes to speak. Name for the record, please.
Number 2. Just double check if this is version 2. Yep, that's it.
Okay, that's the clickers.
That's the clicker. 4. It's right. It's right. Okay. Very good then. Thank you. Get this up here.
Hello, Mayor Jacobson, City or Council President Thornton, and City Council members. My name is Nate Wheeler. I am with the housing company down and located in Boise, Idaho. Also, our business partner here is with us today. Larry is the Executive Director of St. Vincent de Paul, and one of his board members, Steve, is here present along with other people that are here to voice support and also just show their support in attendance of this. Wanted to give you just a little bit of background on who we are as the housing company. We were established back in 1990 as an affordable housing through the low income housing tax credit program that was released during that time. Since that time, we have completed over 40 projects. Only one is outside of the state of Idaho, and we manage another 10 for other competitors on their property management side. We have never built a project and sold it. So we keep them all in-house and keep them for long-term. We have developed, as you can see, there are over 1,600 units in 40 communities. And a matter of fact, one of our, I'll get to that here in just a second, but how big is the need for affordable housing? This was something that just came out during the latest legislative session, that nearly 25,000 affordable housing units are needed here within the state of Idaho. And we just want to make a small dent with 32 just right down the road from here. Right now, we actually have a project that was built in 1992 off of Celtice here in Post Falls, so we already have an active presence with the management team. And what we would like to do is build one right there. This is the aerial view, as John pointed out earlier on it, and he showed the zoning on that with the CCS and the R2, and what we're requesting is that we can get the CCS or the SC5 zoning here for this whole site for the mixed use project. What this image depicts is the number of buildings and the ones that have basements, along with a condemned gas tanks, three fuel tanks that were condemned back in 1993 by DEQ, filled with sand, water, and air. They signed off on it, but you can see that there are 7 standing buildings currently. The ones that, or the little orange octagons or hexagons that are there, those are the ones that have basements in them. And our plan is to raise all of those buildings, bring it back to a dirt level site, including removing the tanks on the northeast corner, and make this a flat site and then build up from there. The other thing that John pointed out is that these are the access points that would be taken away off of this project. We want to allow the principal arterial road of Celtice Way to flow smoothly without any flow into this property. So we would cut those off. There's also on the left-hand side off of Compton, that's a 60-foot access point onto that. That too would go away. The main access would be off of Catherine Street on the east side of the building. Also, you can see some parking on the south off of West 7th Avenue. That too would be taken away. So we're cleaning up, trying to tighten up this project, allow traffic to flow smoothly off of Celtice, and allow the in and outs within this site to handle off of one main in and out. Here is the northeast view of the site. You can see there Catherine off to the left-hand side, that road. This is if I was to stand right behind the school behind me. This is the north view of the site. And if I was to jump over to Compton at the lighted intersection, that's the view from there. If I go into the automotive parking lot and I take a shot, you guys can see my commuter vehicle there that I had, my rental. I'm just kidding about that, of course. But that's the site from the west with some of the older hotel and apartments there. And then down towards the corner there where Compton and West 7th Avenue meet, that's the southeast view or the southwest view. And then if I take a look at the east view standing into that automotive lot, that is what you see from that side. What we are proposing is something that looks like this. Please understand that these are all just conceptual at this time. Colors don't stand. Window dressings don't stand. This is all conceptual at this time. So don't think that we're asking for these colors to be approved or anything like this at all. But this is what we're looking at, is something that would change that northwest viewpoint to look more like that. And if we were to go stand up on top of Treaty Rock and take a look down, that's what you would see instead. You can see that there's a covered patio, or excuse me, a covered parking area underneath there with the stilts to go ahead and hold it up. That's that view. And then if we were to swing around and stand on the southeast corner, you would get that kind of a view from this project. That's what we are looking for. Here are some fun little icons I put together here to kind of give some of the idea of what is available for walking distance for our project here. You can see that there's some, with the smiley faces, those are some family services, educational services from the library to the school. The green ones are food service, all scattered throughout there, mainly holding close to Spokane Avenue. And then the orange kind of square or kind of circles are ones for retail or manufacturing, industrial jobs, all within a short distance. That blue line, of course, is the shortest distance to get to the bus stop there. And so you can see that's a perfect crossing point for it. Easy transportation, transit that they could access to. One of the things that is salient to this discussion has to do with the traffic impact that it might have. So you can see the yellow shaded, once again, is a subject property. I went on to ITD's website. They just updated their numbers from 2022 for the annual average daily traffic for this area. And so I want to just share those numbers with you. Going from southeast south on Spokane Avenue, average daily traffic was, or the annual average daily traffic was 23,500. The next one was 18,500. Going north up to where the bus stop is at is about 15,000. And then coming towards that intersection from the west was about 16,000. Now those that didn't want to deal with the Spokane Avenue and the southeast intersection, they would cut through over on this side and we get about 880 cars through that area. And what we have calculated with the help of St. Vincent de Paul on some of their properties that they own, apartment complexes, is that we feel that the average traffic count would add 27 vehicles a day. But let me walk you through how we got to that number. Larry and his team went ahead and went to 3 of their own apartment communities on a Tuesday, which was April 4th, and on a Thursday, which was April 6th. And they counted up the number of cars that were in that parking lot at 3 different times during that day, just to see what the flow would be, or just to see what the impact is. You can see that there were a number of, each one had 42 parking spaces, and each one of those communities had 24 units in them. And so we can see that, for example, up at the very top under April 4th, you can see that at 9 a.m. there were 19 cars in the parking lot at Ross Point 1. At 4 p.m. that dropped to 14, and at 7 p.m. it went to 14. What this allowed me to do is to get an average for it for that day, and then to bring that over into a ratio for vehicles to spaces and vehicles to units that are there. And this way we could project in an affordable housing development how many vehicles are actually going to be taking up the parking spaces here. A lot of our demographic uses public transportation more, uses commuter ride a little bit more. They don't have as many vehicles as other communities might. And then, of course, that was repeated again on Thursday, and you can see how all that data came together. Well, with that in mind, this is just a bar graph that shows that same data. Green is a Tuesday, blue is a Thursday, and you can see how far down the number of parking spaces are taken up on site for an affordable housing project. With those numbers, what that let us know is the average is about 18 cars per apartment complex that St. Vincent de Paul owns. Well, if we take a look at that and say, okay, we're proposing 62 parking spaces on site, not even including the 11 that are off site, that means that we would have 27 vehicles that would occupy those 62 spaces using this research. However, there are already 12 households that are renting there. So if we apply that same ratio, we're looking at that currently there are 10 vehicles that impact those roads on a daily basis. We are saying that our project with 32 units would have about 27. So the net impact to the daily traffic for our 32 units would be 17 vehicles a day. So as I said earlier, I said 27 units or 27 vehicles a day on the roads for the net impact on there. That's actually not correct. It's 17 vehicles would impact the streets for the 32 units that we're proposing. Here's a site plan of the property. To kind of give you another visual on this, you can see kind of that brownish orange line that goes around. That is that podium covered parking area that you saw earlier on the one of the renderings. That is all of the parking spaces, 62 that is on the site, and there's another additional 11 that are off of Catherine, Compton, and West 7th Avenue. If we were to take away 27 parking spaces, that's what it would look like. That would be freed up for retail, for workers that are there, for people that might want to park and just be around the town area, in that area. So that gives an additional 46 parking spaces for St. Vincent de Paul's thrift store that they want to have here, and plenty for the workers that would be there or anybody else that would be there in downtown. So that is what we would like to be able to propose to you concerning this project. We think it would be a great update to the site itself. We think it would be a nice view as people would be traveling eastbound off of Celtice to see this. And we also think it would help out the community and also allow people, as they are struggling to find affordable housing in this area, as they are all over the whole state, to at least get them some more units where they can do that. I stand for any questions.
Any questions at this point? Joe?
You're talking about the primary entry and egress being on Catherine. There's already a stoplight at Compton. Why not have the entry and exit off of Compton and guide folks to that light rather than the uncontrolled intersection of Kathleen and Celtice?
Mayor Jacobson, Councilman Malloy. Excuse me, sorry. I think the main point was that the Catherine was a wider street, and that way it also didn't go up next to where the auto parking or the auto repair shop was at. We could just come there off of Catherine. It was much wider. It's only a block over to Spokane Avenue. Once again, it was also to try to help out with the flow of traffic on that. But if we need to switch the entries, we can get back with the architect and state that. We also, as you can see on this site plan, there's a lot more land to cover over on that side, and there's also some easements from the city. So we wouldn't be able to develop over as far and just make a longer entry point into the site.
Engineering have any concerns on that? Okay.
Any other questions?
What about the residents that are there now? How do you choose to manage that while you're doing construction there and demo and everything?
Yes, Mayor Jacobson, Council Member, Rogers?
Borders.
What?
Borders.
Sorry. There's a glare on there. Man, I am just really flobbing it up here today, man. I am sorry. I apologize. That is something that is in discussion with us and St. Vincent de Paul because they are their tenants. They do have other properties, so there might be something where they might be able to relocate them there. There might be something where it would be a short-term relocation. Not for sure, but we are not interested in doing some sort of displacement and saying, go.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, Shannon. Thank you. Wishing to speak in favor, James Casper.
Hello, Mayor, Council. I'm James Casper. If you don't know me, I'm the Executive Director with Habitat for Humanity of North Idaho. Obviously, we're in the business of affordable housing also. I am here to speak on that importance. There's never been a time in this community where it's been tougher for people at lower incomes. The increases in rents are happening quickly, and unfortunately, wages don't keep up with that. Supply is tough. As interest rates have increased, the traditional builders have slowed down a little bit. We have a few contracts getting canceled. Staff can probably tell you there's a little less in total applications for new residential units this year in Post Falls. That's generally true. The interest rate's going up, things are slowing down a little bit. The other thing I wanted to point out, if you're familiar with our location in Hayden, we have 36 parking spaces for a 14,000 square foot retail space. And that would not fit pretty much any definition of a zoning allowance for parking if you were going by modern parking standards. But it works fine. I mean, yeah, the parking lot is a little busy. There is traffic that comes out of our location and Ziggy's onto Wyoming and all that. But for the most part, if you go at any time of day, most days of the week, it works fine. People plan to come on times or days when it's less busy, other things like that. We're all pretty good at adjusting to the way that things work. And so if there's any concern over that, I would point you to other parts of the cities that are probably less, available parking from many projects that have been here for many years and are still vibrant businesses that citizens traffic and spend a lot of time at and work just fine. Sometimes we look at arbitrary codes as something that needs to be, a guiding principle with no, exception, but oftentimes those are just arbitrary. There are things that were picked in order to create some sort of, idea of a standard, but standards aren't necessarily going to be the thing that makes everything perfect. And I agree with the analysis. If you go to most parking lots in most businesses, even on the busiest days of the year, shopping for 4th of July groceries, most of those parking spaces inside the grocery stores are still empty. So I would say, if anything, please let the people in this community that are interested in working and doing business, the nonprofits that are trying to serve people who are underserved, let them make the small bets and take the ownership over making sure the project works in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Casper. Wishing to speak in favor, Christina Petit.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm going to read so that I don't forget my points.
Christina, give us your name for the record.
Christina Petit, sorry. On behalf of the Post Falls Chamber of Commerce and its Board of Directors, I am here to share our support for the zoning change needed to complete the project for the St. Vincent de Paul North Idaho Workforce Housing. The number one issue we hear from our membership, which consists of nearly 500 businesses to date, is the need for affordable housing. Our members are forced to close on days when they normally wouldn't, or shorten their hours. They're having to drop products and services they normally would offer due to staffing shortages. Most recently, I spoke with Sean, the CEO of Tedder Industries, and he stated that people are literally begging him to come work for his company, but they can't find housing here in North Idaho. It isn't just the manufacturing industry that's affected by our workforce housing shortage. It's restaurants like Oval Office that can't open, and get his project going because he can't keep his people in housing. Companies like Northwest Specialty Hospital and the Post Falls Police Department, who employ essential employees that play a critical role in the health of our community. On a much less critical point of support for this project, it also provides a much-needed aesthetic upgrade to that section of Celtice Way. We urge you from the Post Falls Chamber to support the rezoning of this project to ensure its success. Together, we can make a difference for the success of our business community. I stand for questions.
Thank you, Christina.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Wishing to speak in favor, Mark Woodworth.
Good evening. My name is Mark Woodworth. I'm honored to speak in front of the mayor and council and everyone else in attendance tonight. I've come to know St. Vincent de Paul over the last 10 years as a business community member, working with the Murray Group, as well as a private citizen and supporter of nonprofits and what they do in and for our communities. I also sit on the Post Falls Chamber Board of Directors. St. Vincent de Paul is truly one of the premier nonprofits in our area, but they're more than that. While they do give handouts when they're needed, what I've seen them do better than anything is they help give a hand up. They connect individuals with organizations and services, housing, and much more, so individuals can experience independence and pride, standing on their own 2 feet and being safe, which I think is something that some of us take for granted from time to time. Many of the individuals employed at St. Vincent de Paul's many businesses, they were once clients too. I've talked to many of them. They know what it's like to be barely hanging on or having lost the battle and not able to take care of themselves. So I bring all of this up to point out that I fully believe St. Vincent de Paul is the organization to help tackle workforce housing in this community for those who are just living right on the edge. St. Vincent de Paul manages many properties throughout the county, actually other counties as well, and they do it well. In fact, I've watched them take over other nonprofit properties. Some of you have probably seen that over time as well. Sometimes those properties maybe were having issues with neighbors, and they made it right. They helped them become good neighbors. You don't read about them in the newspaper. So as a benefits consultant, I work with many employers that hire unskilled employees, which also means lower wages, at least for a season. Employers are struggling to find the employees because they cannot afford to live in our beautiful communities. My own professional offices has employees that in the past did use services from St. Vincent de Paul to get by when times were very tough. And these are people who had jobs, but they just couldn't afford the basics: housing, childcare, food, shelter. And I think in front of you is a great solution run by a great organization that has a proven track record. They've taken things that were broken and they've made them work. They are good neighbors. They help take an area that is run down and frankly not the greatest looking right now, and they make it a viable neighborhood once again. They bring life to it, and they've done this many times in many other places. They don't invite problems, they provide solutions to problems. And most of all, they will help more people regain independence and pride of taking care of themselves, their families, and something, again, many of us in this room haven't experienced and perhaps do take for granted. And in closing, I would like to ask the council to resoundingly support this project and the people it will help, which in turn makes our community fabric a much better place. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. And finally, wishing to speak, neutral Samantha Stiglater.
Mayor and Council, Samantha Stiglater, hi, good evening. I think that my questions about the property pertain to parking, which I wasn't able to see in the packet, so pardon me for my late entry there. I guess 17 additional cars per day for a 30 and some change unit doesn't seem quite right to me, especially with the addition of commercial. And so when the parking spots were taken away, I mean, I don't know if it'll make a difference, I'm not voting, but maybe a little bit more clarification there, like, will there be enough parking? Is it really just going to create more traffic on those back roads, especially thinking commercial? Most of our other commercial, especially on Celtice, is on Celtice. You don't have to drive off of Celtice and kind of get to it on a back or more residential road. So that's really my concern, is this parking, and then the numbers about the additional cars. Like maybe it's only 17 for the apartment part of it, but then there's also the idea of adding commercial. So surely those commercial entities are going to want more than 17 cars per day to sustain them. So I think that's just my question.
Thank you. Applicant wish to address any concerns?
Yes, thank you. This is Nate Wheeler again. Yes, just to go ahead and address that again, just to kind of share. Yes, I was speaking solely to the 32 units that we're going to be adding about 17 vehicles a day based upon our research. And absolutely, there will be more than 17 vehicles going to the retail space in order to shop at St. Vincent de Paul's thrift store. That point, though, was to show that we have ample parking to go ahead and take care of whatever needs might be there. And like another person came up and testified or shared concerning the parking needs for another store, you can see that we're going to have ample parking spaces for that side of it, with an additional 46 units if we count the off-street parking on that. So much as in the traffic count on that for the retail space, that's something that we did not do. And ours was more concerned about the impact, because that seems to be, when we've done these presentations in the past, the impact has always been more on the multifamily side of it and what's going on that. So that's the area that I was more or less addressing on that. So.
Well, there was a thrift store there
So I was gonna say.
for a period. Was there ever any studies done on the traffic in and out of it when it was operational before?
Let me ask the yeah, no, there was not.
And I don't remember it being, I don't remember it being very heavy, but.
I did.
The aggregate square footage is less now, so you would conclude there would be fewer cars than we experienced before.
Okay. So what Larry, the executive director of St. Vincent de Paul, said was the aggregate size is less than what there is now, so that you can conclude that obviously the traffic would be also less on that. The other point that we were really trying to do on this, and sorry, it's going to take me a while to kind of get back to it here, is we were trying to clean up also the access points off of Celtice, as John also mentioned on that. Thank you for your patience. Right there. So you can see that those are the access points that we're trying to take off in order to allow the flow to just happen a lot better. Those were some of our concerns and things that we wanted to do as an added benefit to the community and just the traffic flow on that. I know on major arterials, being able to have right-hand turns straight off of a 5-lane road is not always that most helpful. And so we did not want to do that at all. We wanted to take all the traffic off of the main road and then allow them to access the site in order to allow flow to happen during the most congested times of the day.
I have a question for you. We hear a lot here on the council about affordable housing and workforce housing and stuff like that. Do you have a kind of a ballpark figure of unit size, availability, what you'll be offering in that proposal, along with corresponding rents?
Yes, Mayor Jacobson, Councilmember Ziegler?
Yes.
Yes, I got one right tonight. Okay, that feel good now. Yeah, so we have all varied sizes from clear down to 620 square feet up to over 1,100 square feet. The way that the low-income housing tax credit projects works, that acronym is said LIHTC. It falls underneath Section 42 of the IRS code is what governs us on the tax credit side of it. And what it does is it does a percentage off of the area median income. So the government goes through and it takes a look at every census tract that's there, conglomerates it, and it says within this area, here is the average, the area median income for this area. That allows us then to provide rents, or excuse me, provide affordable housing to people that meet a percentage of that. So just to kind of run through it just kind of quickly, so let's say that the area median income for this area is $100,000. Well, we will be renting to people from 30% up to 60% of that. So people making between $30,000 and $60,000 in this example. And then their rents will be reduced to where it's only 30% of their income, including their utilities. So they might be able to get a 1,000 square foot apartment for $700 a month.
So sliding scale based on income.
It is. Yes, that's correct, Councilman. So, and we do not make up that delta. So if the fair market rent for that might be $1,800, $2,000, we still only bring in $700, and so we don't get that difference made up. And so it is truly a missional project to do this, because we go through the same process and getting through to contractors, to getting the supplies. We don't get discounts on those, right? We don't get discounts from sub-base, things like this. We're competing out we're getting our pricing within the normal market out there and the free market, but we're reducing the rents down. So we just don't make the NOI that other multifamily developers would. And that's okay with us, because we want to do this to help out communities.
Thank you.
With your other apartments that you have, how long do the tenants tend to stay? Do you see them graduating out of that very quickly, or do they stay for a while?
Yeah, good question, Mayor Jacobson, Councilman
Show.
Okay, what we see is that a lot of them will stay there for a longer period of time. We don't get a lot of transient or turnover. Our projects typically will be leased up to 100% within 4 to 6 months after completion, and they'll stay 100%. There was just a recent market study that was done, and it surveyed all of the low-income housing, the LIHTC projects, 0% vacancy. So these things have a way of just really holding on. We have limitations on what we can bump rents to. So I know that there's some stories out there about somebody getting in and all of a sudden their rent goes up $200, $300 a month. We can't do that. We don't want to do that. That's not our purpose to do that. So our rent increases are much smaller on a percentage basis, and we have to get that clarified and okayed by the housing authority in order to do that. Because of that reason, a lot of these people stay here longer term, and they really do kind of get invested in the community. They really do take hold of it. They don't want to do anything that would cause them to be forcibly removed, and so they really do turn out to be good citizens and good tenants.
You said that it's based on the 30 to 60% of the income in the area. If they pass that 60%, then they can't stay there, correct? They're not eligible?
Oh, great question. So like, let's say somebody gets a pay raise and all of a sudden it kicks them to 60.5%, right? No, we don't go around and kick these people out. You know, all of a sudden here's a 30-day notice, go somewhere else on that. But at the same time, if their income starts to get a little bit higher, and I do not know, that's on the property management side on how frequently those incomes are checked on that, but I know that it is not an instantaneous show your tax returns. Let's see your pay stubs every semi-annually or something like that. It's not to that level on that. But if whenever that check is done, if it is significantly higher, there is like, hey, you did well. You got us. We got you in here. We got you on your feet. You know, you're doing well here. Now let's do that for somebody else now.
Sure.
I have to ask you a question just because that would give you the opportunity to pronounce all 6 of the council's names. So your company, the housing company, 1990.
Yes,
I believe
ma'am.
that's what you said.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you done projects that have this commercial aspect to it?
Oh, great question. Mayor Jacobson, Council President Thorson.
Nailed it.
Well, that one's closer. The rest of them have little glares. And you see these spectacles on means my eyes aren't great. So I'm trying my best, but thank you. We have done ones that have had a, let me think on that. Because I have not worked at the housing company long. So I'm trying to remember myself on what units or what projects have commercial components to them. That I can't definitely say that we have. That I can't definitely say that we had a commercial component on it. We have not had. That one I would have to get back with you on, and I can send something, but that one I'm not 100% on. I've only worked at the housing company for about a year. Before that, mine was in construction and real estate. So mine's learning this side of it's just a little bit different and understand their portfolio more. I don't know as well on that side.
Do not lose any sleep over that.
Okay. But the good part is that I can tell you this, that working with such a favorable powerhouse nonprofit, that is probably very rare in the last 33 years that we've been able to do that.
Oh.
I do have a follow-up question. I'm just kind of stuck on this, so maybe you could speak to it.
You bet.
If they tend to stay long-term, and I know we do need a solution, we need some low-income to take care of our citizens in that way. But my question is, are we incentivizing them to stay in there long-term and not take initiative to grow? And the reason I'm stuck on it is I know people who do that intentionally. But aside from the intentionality of it, are we incentivizing them to stay in a low-income bracket just for the housing? And I'm just stuck on that. Could you speak to it?
You bet. I know that from the IRS regulations, there's nothing that we can do on our end in order to do any sort of movement up in the pay scale or to put any benchmarks in front of them at all on that. I wish I knew how many. I wish I had our property manager, one of our regional managers here, to speak to answer your question on how quickly those turn over. That I can't say. I know that we can't do anything to say, hey, you know, we're not a transitional house, we're not a 5-year and then you've got to move out. We're not anything of that nature. This can be some, and then there's other units that are called permanent supportive housing that we will be providing that have a veteran's preference for disabled, and they do make up the difference. So they might be making less than 30% of the income, and then they'll come with a voucher, and we can make up that difference to help them to get into a house that can allow that for them. So there are ways that we try to help out that side of it, but so much as in transitioning out or them taking advantage of that, I don't know on that side of things. I know there's nothing that we can do on our side except for just doing the checks, like I said, on income verification. And that, once again, like I said, I wish our regional property manager, because they could probably give you a lot quicker answer than I can on that.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
With that, I'll close the public hearing. So, as it is a zone change, we've got to go through the 6 criteria.
Yeah, and just to reiterate, we are looking at a zone change. And so it also is important to remember that we're bound by the zone change criteria. And while we've seen the site plan and sort of know about some of those uses that they're proposing, we're really looking at those 6 criteria, and not necessarily the potential residents of the property. So with that, excuse me. The first review and approval criteria is whether or not it's consistent with the future land use map. So what designation does the future land use map give the subject property, and how did those facts guide the discussion?
Well, this whole focus area is meant for commercial and high density, so.
Well, and it's currently zoned business commercial. And SC5 fits into that
Fits into both.
category.
Okay. The second criteria is whether or not it's consistent with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. So which goals and policies do you believe are relevant to the proposal, and describe what facts in the record support that?
Balance of housing.
Infill.
Yeah, encouraging higher density.
Infill.
Info?
Supports community needs and connectivity.
And I think it improves safety at that point too. One of my favorite parts about the whole development is that it does close off the access points from Celtice, because anybody trying to turn left out of there, especially the traffic patterns now, is not going to be doing too well. So I appreciate that it funnels everything onto a side road instead.
So with that discussion on traffic patterns, we can
Speaking of
dive into the next criteria. Zoning is assigned following consideration of such items such as street classification, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, and community plans, and geographic or natural features. So what pertinent facts in the record, and I think you spoke to the traffic aspect.
Celtice is a principal arterial roadway.
I don't know if this matters, but I can say from personal experience, I use that 7th to Compton, to Celtice, to get around that whole Spokane Street, Celtice interchange pretty often. And there's never much going on in that little strip, so I think there's plenty of capacity there to.
I use it unless I'm trying to turn east onto I-90.
Right.
It just doesn't give you enough time to get over.
So to Carrie's point, review criteria 4, commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with a higher road classification.
Celtice is a primary arterial. SC5 fits in that.
All right, and limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential is typically assigned for properties as they proceed farther away from higher intensity urban activity.
It's not applicable in this case. And number 6 is also NA.
All right.
Okay, you might have discussion now. Someone want to float a motion before discussion?
I would, if I can speak, I would like to, I don't know if we're still having discussion. You want to have discussion first?
That's fine.
I would just like to comment that I think that this is an excellent project for that location.
I agree.
providing workforce housing. Aesthetically, I think it'll clean up that site very nicely and kind of contribute to the downtown heart of the city in a way that I think is appropriate.
Jerry?
I was going to say, it is rare in all the years I've served on this council. That's something, we make a lot of hard decisions. This is just not one of them. And if anybody has anything else they want to say, I'm prepared to make an enthusiastic motion.
Any other comments first?
About the only concern I still might have is the ingress and egress, but engineering said didn't seem to have any concerns on that, and I'm sure if it makes sense to take advantage of the stoplight at Compton, then that'll probably happen after consulting with engineering, et cetera, but yeah, I think with closing down the ingress and egress on South East, it's gonna be better regardless, so.
Okay. Jerry?
On that note, I move to approve the housing company zone change file number ZC-23-1, finding that the requested zoning meets the approval criteria in Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberation, and direct staff to prepare a reasoned decision.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion? Shannon, please take the roll.
Malloy.
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Ziegler.
Aye.
Shove.
Aye.
Walker.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. I didn't say a whole lot during the presentation for a couple reasons. Number one, I'm a huge fan of St. Vincent. I think they do tremendous work. I can't imagine anybody better suited to endeavor on this type of project. I appreciate the fact that, Nate, you stated, you're not out here to make up that difference. You're here to provide a service, and it's a mission purpose. I agree with that, and I love the name. I think John Brunning has given so much to St. Vincent for so many years that I think it's truly an honor and very, very acceptable to name something like this after him. I think that he has served you well, and again, I thank you for all you do for not just our community, but for all the communities that you service. With that, we have third public hearing, and that's I hope I pronounce it right, Nagra?
Yeah, I did want to point out, and Phil can chime in on this, Connie Kruger is the representative for this. I don't see her this evening. Do not know why. We've presented before in the past on proposals without the applicant. I don't know, Phil, if you want to comment.
It's up to mayor and council whether or not to proceed. You
My
can
thought is
certainly
we go-
you can certainly make the decision.
Yeah, my
on the
thought is we
record.
go for it. If the proponent's spokesperson's not here, that's on them, right?
And if there's something that comes up that can't be answered without the proponent here, we can always continue to a future
Yeah.
meeting at that point.
Okay. Everybody
Right.
concurrence? With that, I will open the Nagra annexation file number ANNX-22-11, public hearing.
Yeah, so the request here for you with the Nagra annexation is an annexation of approximately 2.64 acres into the city of Post Falls for the proposed CCS zoning designation. That's that community commercial services. On December 13th, 22, P&Z did forward a recommendation for the proposed CCS zoning district. Location is here in the northwest corner of Prairie and McGuire Road. There is a picture of the site, that northwest corner. It's mostly vacant. You can see there is a remaining utility building out there, storage building. There's no significant topology or vegetation matters on this. It is over the aquifer. The water provider would be the East Green Acres Irrigation District, with sewer being provided by the city of Post Falls. There is the location with the surrounding zoning. In context, I zoomed out here as a star. That's the site. You can see just to the north, that's the proposed future high school site. It's the intent to put a high school there. The residential mixed is what you see to the west and to the west of the high school, And it transitions into some community commercial mixed and some industrial further to the west along Pleasant View. We'll note the red circle that's in our comprehensive plan. That is denoted for proposed commercial nodes as to encourage some off-corridor commercial. Going into the review criteria for proposals, first one is to look at, is the proposed amendment in the proposed zoning consistent with the future land use map? There's that commercial node that I spoke to, and there's, you see that denotation of the transitional future land use designation there, that blue. You can see here that transitional, as mentioned in an earlier public hearing, focuses us to go to the focus area. We look at, this is in the West Prairie, there's that star, it's right on the border of this. Seek opportunities to develop off-corridor commercial is denoted. And it says West Prairie may warrant commercial use consideration if adjacent to arterial and collector streets where traffic volumes exceed 4,000 vehicles. Today, I don't know what the traffic count is on Prairie Avenue, but it is a fairly used roadway. Looking at the second criteria, amendments to the zoning map should be in accordance with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. First goal, grow and sustain a balanced, resilient economy for Post Falls, providing community prosperity and fiscal health. Goal 3, this is the maintain and improve Post Falls small town scale charm and aesthetic beauty. Did underline here this red part of the, in the comp plan, it talks in the explanations of what different meanings are. It does allow for urban growth in areas that are appropriate. So being in a transitional area, being in a denoted commercial node, and as cited in the West Prairie focus area may seem appropriate. Amendments to the zoning map should be in accordance with the goals, policies found in the comprehensive plan. Goal 5 and how it's germane, look at safe, vital, and attractive. So with improvements and being on the northwest corner of that, you would get upon development down the road and the typical swell, sidewalk, curb, separating pedestrians from vehicles, making that a safer corner than without development. Vital, there is a, like I mentioned, that planned high school. Oftentimes having commercial uses near a high school, there's a synergy between them, whether you're going to a game, or bringing one of your kids there and maybe you forgot Gatorade or water and you need to stop in. So there's that kind of synergy. There's employment synergy. You may go to the high school, you may have a place of employment right nearby. Attractive, we do have commercial design standards that ensure or assist ensuring attractive sites continuing in the city of Post Falls. Goal 7, plan for all types of land uses in Post Falls. Goal 8, protect and maintain Post Falls natural resources, clean air, soils, river, and aquifer. Going into the policies, support land use patterns that maintain or enhance community levels of service, foster the long-term fiscal health of a community, maintain and enhance residents' quality of life, promote compatible, well-designed development, and implement goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. Policy 2, apply and revise zoning designation with careful considerations of future land use mapping, compatibility with surrounding land uses, infrastructure and service plans, existing and future traffic patterns, all to meet the goals and policies of the comprehensive plan. I kind of talked about the future land use map, looking at to the west, planned community commercial mixes, the school, it may be considered having commercial and the commercial node as being complementary to that area. In the staff report, there was discussions about the infrastructure and service plan. In the traffic patterns, there wasn't any concerns that was arisen in those staff commentary. Policy 3, encourage development patterns that provide suitably scaled daily needs services within walking distance of residential areas, allowing a measure of independence to those who cannot and choose not to drive. So looking at this area long-term, as you get the residential mix built out, I would presume that those that live on the west side of that residence more than likely would walk westerly to the commercial needs at the community commercial mix. Those that live further to the eastern part of the residential mix may walk to this site that would be on that northwest corner, as well as the nearby high school students. Policy 7, encourage and develop off-corridor access and circulation for commercial and mixed-use areas abutting limited access arterials. One reason why we have off-corridor nodes in the comprehensive plan, that's so not everybody's driving to Mullen Avenue or everybody's driving over to Highway 41, that if you displace nodes within the community, within fairly logical areas, that you would encourage individuals going to those nodes and not necessarily traveling and making a more of an impact on our transportation network. So that's kind of why they're in our comprehensive plan. Policy 27, work to improve street connectivity in all areas of Post Falls, improving walkability, public health and safety, and transportation efficiency. So Policy 27, I kind of already denoted that with development of this, you would get those improvements that would help you get that important corner improved. Now going to the third criteria, zoning is assigned following considerations of the street classifications, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, and geographic natural features. The road classifications on this would be conducive to more your higher intense uses of commercial. Kind of already talked about the future land use. The staff report goes into traffic patterns, and if there's any conflict, none was brought up. Criteria 4, commercial and high density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with higher road classifications. So Prairie Avenue is a principal arterial, with McGuire being a major collector. So this, the reason why this is up here is Prairie Avenue gets a lot of traffic to it. And if you've tried to take any sort of lefts over towards 53, I've done it and don't like it too much. It's quite an experience. So yeah, they're planning a interchange to help mitigate that conflict, and that's, once that's done, I would presume you're going to see increased traffic on Prairie Avenue above what's already there. Because me, when I think about it, I avoid that. If I go, I'm going to go up to the north part of Spokane, I'm not going to go that way because I'm going to avoid that. With an interchange, I'm probably going to go that way, and it probably will continue to encourage traffic on Prairie and connecting that 53 road network into Hayden. It'll become, Prairie Avenue will become a major east-west road. It already is one. Fifth criteria, limited neighborhood commercial and low-density residential zoning is typically a sign of property as they proceed further away from. Like I stay here, this is an area that's in transition. We're seeing increased traffic now. You would never conceive the traffic 15 years ago that's on Prairie that is there today. And in the future, it'll, like I said, it's going to evolve into a major corridor. And then the sixth criteria deals with industrial zoning, which they're not asking, and it's not applicable. Here's the agencies that were routed. CUNY County Fire, they said they would coordinate a time and site development. Police were neutral. YPL, Yellowstone Pipeline, they had no impact as a statement. Postal Highway District, they were neutral. They did have some right-of-way requirements, but that would be met with development of the site. And the school district was neutral. Any questions for me?
Questions, John?
Couple. So this obviously helps to extend pedestrian facilities to the school site. Does this also help out utilities to the school site, or are they coming from a different direction?
That's a good question. I can speak to some of it, and maybe Bill can help with other parts of it. So, yeah, you're going to get the, like you said, you're going to get the improvements around to this point for the pedestrian connectivity. How sewer and water gets to the school site, I don't believe they'd be participating. If there is underlying infrastructure, typically they would do to and through. So if there is infrastructure that would need to be required for connectivity, they generally put that in with development at that time, or coordinated otherwise with the engineering division. You want to have additional commentary?
Yeah, just real quickly.
Bill Melvin, City Engineer, Mayor and Council. Sanitary sewer, our current master plan has sanitary sewer at this location being routed to the west to a future lift station at Pleasant View and Prairie Avenue, where we had Project Drive was going at one point. And so that is the long-term route for sanitary sewer within this area. Currently, that lift station is not under construction, and we've got, you know, other folks that need to join in to help make that happen. So they would be a participant in that. They would help extend sanitary sewer through there. But the routing for sanitary sewer to the school isn't necessarily along Prairie Avenue and up. It would be more through, it's currently planned to go more through the recently annexed area of Copper Basin within there. And water, it's East Green Acres Water District. It could provide an extension, like say maybe they grab water, extend it through north to the school. But sanitary sewer, they would just be a participant in maybe helping their development might be able to help as we try to get more people together to help build that lift station and get some of that stuff constructed for them. So it would aid, and also as you'd mentioned, helps pedestrian connectivity. It gives us rights of way for widening of roads and better traffic improvements that we have along there. Since I'm here, access to the site would be restricted to McGuire, except for maybe right in, right out off of Prairie Avenue, just because we've got the roundabout and the turn lanes and everything that's within there. So.
Joe, that answer your question?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be a potentially added bonus if we could get the developer of this property to help bring some other utilities, but regardless, having the sidewalk from the school site down to the intersection is gonna be pretty critical when the school goes in, so it'd be nice to have that there already.
Like I said, I think the more participants we get in that area, it's gonna be much easier for us to fund and get that lift station and the rest of that infrastructure in place, so.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
So
Lynn?
Bill, while you're there,
Yes.
what about the easement dedication that the highway district has required on this project? With them already taking part of that corner off for the roundabout, how does that?
So there, it is more relative to grants of right-of-ways and easements along McGuire and Pleasant View. Outside of that, the standards that we have for our roadways would meet the highway district's same standards for that. They're eventually gonna be the City of Post Falls roadway. Their typical comment is to make sure that we are indeed getting that right-of-way when we have annexations and development. So.
Okay.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Good.
Not at this point.
And the applicant's not here?
One more quick thing. I think another thing is the importance, and I think sometimes we forget, like in this situation, the importance of getting that right away. You know, even if you don't see development, because the cost of getting the sewer to the west may take some time for that to work out, getting that right away, so when the school comes in, that we can then get that, you know, it's there for any sort of road widening and whatnot.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak?
We have none.
I'll close the public hearing. And we have 6 criteria to go through.
Wait till John gets those pulled up.
Can we have discussion?
You want to have discussion? Well, we got to go through this. But first of all, we need to decide whether or not it makes sense to annex it.
That is correct.
I would say absolutely.
Yes.
My question is, as it relates to that, the development agreement says that time is of the essence on this annexation. My question is why? Because sewer isn't going to be there for quite some time. We don't even have the lift station in place yet to serve that project. So why is timing of the essence in this project?
Any idea, John?
Is that in the annexation development agreement?
Yes.
I'm assuming that's some boilerplate language that's in the annexation agreement.
Yeah, so it's just time is of the essence language is just in the contract clauses as far as deadlines in that development agreement. So it's just basically the boilerplate saying that the deadlines placed in this development agreement are the deadlines placed in the agreement. Helps.
Okay,
I'm not good with that, but
but you're okay with the annexation itself?
yes, I
Okay.
think it makes sense.
Okay. I think everybody, we are, okay. Now the 6 criteria.
All right, the first criteria is consistency with the future land use map. And so what designation does the future land use map give the subject property, and what facts in the record relate to that standard?
Commercial in a commercial node makes a heck of a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's one of the biggest determining factors in the development of this property and this zone designation. It's just right in that node.
Okay.
And the second criteria is consistency with the goals and policies found in the comprehensive plan. So which do you believe are relevant to the proposal?
Creates opportunity for commercial activity within a commercial node.
Jerry, do you have something?
No, I was talking, I think the same thing.
Okay.
It also provides that pedestrian connectivity at that intersection as well.
Okay.
Zoning is assigned following consideration of such items such as street classification, traffic patterns, existing development, future land uses, community plans, and geographic or natural features.
Street classifications can certainly more than handle it. The 2.6 acres, there's, the highest intense use in that area is gonna be the school by a long shot. So, I think this is only gonna help facilitate, to minimize the impact of that use. So in that case, it's a win.
It enhances the level of service to those other properties.
Commercial and high-density residential zoning is typically assigned along streets with a higher road classification.
Prairie Avenue.
Prairie and McGuire.
And McGuire both, yeah.
And limited or neighborhood commercial and lower density residential zoning is typically assigned for properties as they proceed farther away from higher intense urban activity.
It's not what they're asking for, although it is interesting that right now, there's not a whole lot out there. But again, that's the school site. We know what's coming. So
There will be.
there will be plenty.
All right. And the last review criteria
applicable.
is not applicable.
You want to discuss or motion? What's your pleasure?
Madam President?
Would you like a motion, or is there any more discussion?
I think we're in motion stage.
Ready?
Okay. So this is an annexation. It has a zoning recommendation. Do we need to talk about that first?
So
Is it two separate things?
generally, we take these as, I believe, two separate motions. We take the motion for annexation first, and then the motion for zoning.
Okay. Then I would move to approve Nagra annexation, file number ANNX-22-11, and have staff prepare the final ordinance for annexation.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Shove,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Okay. Now, is now good?
Don't change it.
I would move to zone CCS, the requested zoning for Nagra annexation, file number ANNX-22-11, finding that the zoning meets the approval criteria in the Post Falls Municipal Code as outlined in our deliberation, and direct staff to prepare a reasoned decision.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Thorson,
I'm sorry, did you say Thornton?
Yes.
Oh, my God. Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Shove,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. I just have to say I'm surprised that the applicant wasn't represented. It's
Yeah.
just very unusual. So hopefully there was reasons, but I just thought that was very strange. Next item up is unfinished business, returning ordinances and resolutions. We have one action item, Corbin Lift Station replacement, recommendation of award.
Evening, Council. Jackson Fleshman, Project Manager for the City of Post Falls. Right. So tonight I'll be presenting on the Corbin Lift Station Recommendation 2 Award. Familiarizing ourselves with the location of this project, it is on the south side of Southeast Way between Corbin and Idaho. Here's some pictures of the existing site as it is today. Here's some plan pictures so we can see what's actually going on here. The picture on the left is the existing conditions, with the red box being the existing lift station, fenced in. The picture on the right is what the station will become. So that red box is still the same size as the one on the left, but you can see just how large the lift station is getting from there. Adding some things there, which I will discuss in this next slide. Purpose of this project, so it was identified in our 2018 collections master plan that Corbin Lift Station needed to be upgraded. A couple big things that it does is adds emergency storage, gets us a control building, increased capacity for build out, a few other things. And we do have the advantage of a temporary construction easement with a land purchase that happened that I will discuss here in a moment. Timeline for this, council approved an engineering and design agreement with Welch-Comer on March 21st of last year. And then August 9th, there was a property purchase and lease agreement, touching on that briefly. Jordan Tractor, Jordan Sales and Services, I believe is the official name. They moved and actually sold that property, and with that we were able to purchase the land that got us the bigger site for the station, as well as got us a temporary construction easement, or lease agreement to construct, which works out well for this project. Plan specs were distributed May of this year, and we had a bid opening on June 8th. We had 4 bidders come in, with Le Riviere coming in at the low bid of just over $1.6 million. The construction contract that we are asking for from council has that number plus a 10% contingency for a total of $1,776,997. Excuse me. And that'd be funded through our Corbin Lift Station project, or budget code. Continuing on with some of the projects we got going on now, we are going to include an optional and defined shutdown period for material procurement. We found this actually works really well in the few projects we've implemented it on. And then we plan on having the project completed by the end of construction season 2024. There's a couple long lead items on the project, more than likely having some construction occurring this fall with a winter shutdown and coming back in the spring.
Questions, Jackson?
Looks like it came in within budget.
We've talked about it with the land acquisition and the lease, so something that's been before several times. Entertain a motion.
I'd move to approve the Corbin Lift Station Replacement Recommendation of Award.
Second.
Motion second. Further discussion. Roll call, please.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Shove,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. Thanks, Jackson.
Thanks, Council.
Next up, under new business, is the ordinance, Kootenai County Fire and Rescue and KCEMSS impact fee update.
Yeah, so in your packet here is a proposed ordinance. The goal here from the planning division in coordination with legal services is as we adopted the Kootenai County impact fees as part of our impact fees and collecting them, it became apparent that at times you have certain uses that aren't residential, they may not be commercial, but they're kind of confusing on how we collect impact fees on behalf of the Kootenai County Fire. So in coordination with them, we're not going rogue in this proposed language, and so in coordination with them, that you've seen here in the packet, these proposed underlying text for the additional language, and really, basically, I'm going to put these on now. It just basically allows us, the city may, in its sole discretion, determine an exemption from fire and/or EMS impact fees exist based on its own imposition of impact fees. If the city would not collect a city impact fee, the city will not assess fire and/or EMS impact fees. So Basically, it allows staff to collect impact fees as business as usual and not have to create or call them up every time we have this unique circumstance. And so it kind of speeds things up on our end and allows us to provide overall the same service and collection for them.
Yeah, just to add on to that, the fire district just separates out two different criteria, either residential or non-residential uses, where in the city we have a lot of different criteria as to how we assess impact fees. And so it was creating a little bit of a dichotomy of, well, we wouldn't collect for it, but technically under the fire district, they would collect for it. And so it's trying to clean that up.
Like a canopy at a gas station. Typically, we don't collect for those kind of things. And there's no occupancy in that. The business, the retail side, we do. We have commercial square footage. So weird things like that were coming up, or, you know, maybe Parks was building a building that, you know, was unique and some sort of weird thing. So
The fire and EMS are fine with this change, right?
yeah, like I said, they saw the language, they reviewed it. It was in concurrence with them.
Okay.
I would move to approve the ordinance KCFR and KCEMSS impact fee update. And you've got the paper now.
On its first and only reading.
Well, under suspension of the rules. I usually have one up here.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Shove,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Motion passes.
An ordinance of the City of Post Falls, Kootenai County, a municipal corporation of the state of Idaho, providing for amendment to the Post Falls Municipal Code, Section 1910-040, regarding the imposition of impact fees, providing for amendment to Post Falls Municipal Code 1910-050, regarding exemptions, providing that the remaining sections of Post Falls City Code shall remain in effect, providing for severability, providing for this ordinance to be in full force and effect from and after its passage, approval, and publication according to law.
I'll let you take it, Carrie. You've got the follow-up over there.
Oh, is he?
I don't have one here. I thought I did.
Here.
I move to approve the ordinance KCFR and KCEMSS impact fee update, and to direct the clerk to assign the appropriate number and that it be published by summary only.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Ziegler,
Aye.
Shove,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders.
Aye.
Motion passes, thank you. Next item up is citizens' issue, and this section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the council regarding a city-related issue that is not on the agenda. Seeing none, we go down to administrative staff reports. Looks like we have none tonight.
We have none tonight, sir. No.
Mayor and council comments. I don't have any. Council?
Nope.
Can I just say I don't want anyone to worry about me? It's been a long 4th of July weekend. I don't want people worrying about my.
We
I
do
don't know
need
what
an
date it is.
executive session.
We do. We do. I would move to enter into an executive session pursuant to Idaho Code 74-2061C to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency, and no action will be taken during the session, and that the session will last approximately 10 minutes.
Second.
Motion second, further discussion. Roll call, please.
Shove,
Aye.
Walker,
Aye.
Malloy,
Aye.
Thorson,
Aye.
Borders,
Aye.
Ziegler.
Aye.
Motion passes. We'll enter executive. Call the meeting back to order. Is there any motion to come forward?
Oh,
Move to
please adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.